A billionaire hears a black girl beg for help. Save my brother. You won't believe what happens next. The rain had just stopped falling on Manhattan's Fifth Avenue when Marcus Sterling stepped out of his private limousine. The 52-year-old billionaire adjusted his $10,000 suit and checked his platinum watch. It was 7:43 p.m. on a Tuesday evening in November. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement like scattered diamonds. Marcus owned 3 tech companies, 17 hotels, and more property than he could remember. People called him the Ice King of Wall Street because he never showed emotion in business deals. His gray eyes could make grown men nervous. His fortune was built on saying no to people who asked for help. He had learned early in life that emotion was weakness, and weakness was death in the business world. Tonight was supposed to be simple. He would walk 2 blocks to Le Bernardin, the expensive French restaurant where he ate dinner alone every Tuesday. His bodyguard, Thomas, walked 3 steps behind him. The street was busy with people hurrying home from work. Steam rose from the subway grates. The smell of roasted chestnuts mixed with car exhaust. Marcus moved through the crowd like a shark through water, people stepping aside without knowing why. That's when he heard the voice that would change everything. It was young, desperate, and filled with a kind of terror that made him stop walking. Please, please, somebody help me. The voice came from his left. Marcus turned and saw a young black girl, maybe 15 or 16 years old. Her school uniform was soaked from the earlier rain. Her braided hair stuck to her face. Tears mixed with raindrops on her dark cheeks. She was going from person to person, but everyone walked past her like she was invisible. When her brown eyes met Marcus's gray ones, she froze for a moment. Then she ran toward him with the determination of someone who had nothing left to lose. Thomas moved to block her, but Marcus raised his hand to stop him. The girl fell to her knees right there on the wet sidewalk. "Please, sir," she begged, her voice breaking. "Save my brother. He's been wrongfully accused and they're going to hurt him." Marcus had seen every kind of scam in his 40 years of business. People pretending to need help was nothing new. But something about this girl was different. Her fear wasn't fake. The trembling in her hands wasn't an act. She looked up at him with eyes that held real terror, not the practiced sadness of a street performer. "Get up," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. The girl struggled to her feet, swaying slightly. Up close he could see she was exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her school bag was torn at the shoulder. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya," she whispered. "Maya Washington." "My brother is Terrell Washington. He's only 19. Please, you have to believe me. He didn't do what they're saying he did." Marcus studied Maya's face carefully. In business, he had developed an ability to read people like books. This girl wasn't lying, but that didn't mean her brother was innocent. "What exactly is your brother accused of?" he asked. Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "They say he robbed a jewelry store on Madison Avenue 3 days ago. They say he hurt the owner. But Terrell was with me that whole day. We were visiting our grandmother in the hospital in Brooklyn. She's dying of cancer. We were there from morning until night. The nurses saw us. Everyone saw us. But the police won't listen. They found some boy on security camera who looks a little like Terrell, wearing similar clothes, and that was enough for them." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, anger mixing with fear. "They arrested him yesterday morning. Our mother died 2 years ago. Our father left when I was a baby. Terrell is all I have. He works 2 jobs to pay for my school. He's never been in trouble, not once. He wants to be a nurse, to help people like the ones taking care of our grandma. But they're treating him like he's already guilty. His public defender met him for 5 minutes and told him to take a plea deal. 5 minutes. For something he didn't do." Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a crack in his emotional armor. Maybe it was the way Maya talked about her brother, with such fierce love and loyalty. Maybe it was the injustice of it all. Or maybe it was because, 40 years ago, Marcus himself had been a young black man accused of something he didn't do. Only back then, he had an expensive lawyer his mentor had hired. That lawyer had saved his future. "Where is your brother being held?" Marcus asked. Maya's eyes widened with hope. "Rikers Island. They set his bail at $200,000. We don't have anything close to that. Our apartment is rented." We don't own anything valuable. I tried to sell my mother's wedding ring, the only thing we have left of her, but it's only worth $300. Marcus pulled out his phone and made a call. Harrison, it's Sterling. I need you at my office in 30 minutes. Bring your team. James Harrison was the best criminal defense attorney in New York, and he owed Marcus several favors. Maya looked confused as Marcus ended the call and made another one. Thomas, bring the car around. He looked down at Maya. You're coming with me. We're going to help your brother. Maya's legs almost gave out. You believe me? I believe you believe him, Marcus said. That's enough for now. But if your brother is lying to you, if this is some elaborate con, I will find out. And you won't like what happens next. Maya nodded quickly. He's not lying. I swear on my mother's grave he's innocent. The limousine pulled up, and Thomas opened the door. Maya hesitated before getting in, like she was entering another world, which in a way she was. The leather seats probably cost more than her family's yearly rent. Marcus got in after her and immediately began making calls. Within 10 minutes, he had arranged for Terrell's bail to be posted that night. Within 20 minutes, he had 3 private investigators heading to the hospital in Brooklyn to interview witnesses. Within 30 minutes, they were at his office building, a 60-story glass tower that scraped the night sky. The conference room on the 50th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows that showed all of Manhattan spread out like a glittering map. Maya stood frozen, staring at the view. She had probably never been this high up in her life. James Harrison arrived with 2 younger lawyers, all carrying laptops and thick folders. Harrison was a tall white man with silver hair and eyes like a hawk. He had won cases everyone said were impossible. Marcus, he said, shaking hands. You said this was urgent. Marcus explained the situation while Maya sat in a chair that probably cost more than a car. She looked small and lost in the massive room, but her eyes burned with determination. Harrison listened carefully, taking notes on a legal pad. The first thing we need to do is get the security footage from the jewelry store and the hospital, he said. If we can prove Terrell was in Brooklyn during the robbery, that's our defense. Maya, I need you to write down every single person who saw you and your brother that day. Every name you can remember. Maya nodded and began writing on the paper Harrison gave her. Her handwriting was neat and careful, like someone who took school seriously. While she wrote, Marcus made more calls. He had connections everywhere. Judges, politicians, police commissioners. He didn't threaten anyone or offer bribes. He didn't need to. When someone worth $8 billion starts asking questions, people pay attention. They all said the same thing. The case against Terrell Washington looked solid. The security footage showed a young black man, similar height and build, wearing a red hoodie just like one found in Terrell's apartment. The jewelry store owner had picked Terrell out of a lineup. It looked bad, very bad. By 9 p.m., Terrell was released on bail. Marcus had put up the full $200,000 without blinking. A car brought him straight to the office. When the elevator doors opened, Maya ran to her brother and threw her arms around him. Terrell Washington was thin and tired-looking, with the same intelligent eyes as his sister. His hands shook as he hugged Maya back. I didn't do it, he said to the room, his voice hoarse. I swear I didn't do it. I don't even know where that jewelry store is. I've never been to Madison Avenue in my life. Marcus studied him with the same intensity he used for billion-dollar deals. Sit down, he said. Tell us everything about that day. Every detail, no matter how small. Terrell sat next to Maya, holding her hand like it was a lifeline. I worked the night shift at the warehouse on Friday. Got off at 7 a.m. on Saturday. Maya met me at the subway station and we went straight to Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. Grandma has been there for 2 weeks. She's not doing well. We stayed with her all day. Maya read to her from the Bible. I helped the nurses move her when they changed her sheets. We didn't leave until visiting hours ended at 8 p.m. Then we took the subway home, ordered Chinese food from the place on our corner, and went to bed. The next morning, the police were banging on our door. Harrison's team was already pulling up hospital records on their laptops. The timestamp on the robbery is 2:47 p.m. on Saturday, Harrison said. That's right in the middle of when you claim to be at the hospital. The problem is proving it. Hospitals have security cameras, but not in every hallway or room. Marcus's phone rang. It was one of his private investigators calling from Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. Marcus put it on speaker. "Mr. Sterling, we've interviewed 6 nurses and 2 doctors. They all remember seeing Terrell and Maya Washington here on Saturday. But here's the problem. None of them can pinpoint exact times. They remember them being here in the afternoon or most of the day, but that's not specific enough for court." Marcus felt frustration building. In business, money could solve almost any problem. But justice was more complicated than a hostile takeover or a merger. "There has to be something," Maya said desperately. "We were there. This is insane. How can someone be in 2 places at once?" That's when Terrell suddenly sat up straight. Wait, I just remembered something. There was a kid, a little boy with leukemia in the room next to Grandma's. Around 2:30, he was crying because he was scared of getting his medication. The nurses couldn't calm him down. I went in and did magic tricks for him. Stupid stuff I learned on YouTube to make Maya laugh when she was younger. Card tricks making a quarter disappear. The kid loved it. His mother was there. She took a video on her phone. She said she wanted to show his father, who was deployed in Afghanistan. She even asked my name to tell the kid later when he was feeling better. Harrison immediately stood up. What was the boy's name? The mother's name? Terrell squeezed his eyes shut, trying to remember. The boy was called Mikey. The mother? Her name was Jennifer something. She had a military spouse badge on her purse. Within minutes, Harrison's team was calling the hospital, tracking down Jennifer and Mikey's information. It was now past midnight. The office building was silent except for the hum of computers and the occasional ring of a phone. Maya had fallen asleep on Terrell's shoulder. Marcus watched them from across the conference table. They reminded him of himself and his sister 40 years ago, before success and money had created distance between them. His sister had died 5 years ago, and he hadn't spoken to her in the decade before that. Money had given him everything except the things that truly mattered. Finally, at 1:17 a.m., they found her. Jennifer Patterson, military spouse, mother of Michael Patterson, age 7, being treated for acute lymphoblastic leukemia at Brooklyn Methodist. Harrison called her immediately, despite the late hour. Marcus watched as Harrison explained the situation. There was a long pause, then Harrison's face lit up. "She has the video," he said. "She has the whole thing, including Terrell introducing himself by name." The timestamp on her phone shows 2:34 p.m. to 2:51 p.m. The robbery happened at 2:47 p.m. It's physically impossible for Terrell to have been at both places. The room exploded with relief. Maya woke up and started crying. Terrell put his head in his hands. Even Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. But Harrison held up his hand. "This proves Terrell is innocent, but we still need to find out who really committed the robbery and why Terrell was identified. Someone out there looks enough like him to fool the store owner and match the security footage. Until we find that person, there's still danger." Marcus stood up and walked to the window. The city below never slept. Millions of lives playing out in those lit windows. "We're going to do more than prove innocence," he said. "We're going to find the real criminal. And we're going to find out if Terrell was specifically targeted or if this was just terrible luck." He turned to his investigators. "I want every second of that security footage analyzed. I want to know every person who was in that jewelry store in the week before the robbery. I want background checks on everyone, including the owner. Something about this feels wrong." Over the next 3 days, Marcus threw resources at the case like he was acquiring a Fortune 500 company. His investigators discovered something disturbing. There had been 4 similar robberies in the past year where young black men were arrested based on shaky evidence. In 2 cases, the men took plea deals for crimes they swore they didn't commit, just to avoid potentially longer sentences. In 1 case, the charges were mysteriously dropped. In the 4th case, the accused was still awaiting trial. All 4 robberies were at high-end stores. All 4 store owners had large insurance policies. And all 4 owners had something else in common. They used the same insurance company, Cromwell Indemnity, a firm owned by Vincent Cromwell, who just happened to be Marcus's former business partner. The man who had betrayed Marcus 15 years ago and cost him nearly $1 billion before Marcus rebuilt his empire. Marcus felt the pieces clicking together like a deadly puzzle. This wasn't about Terrell at all. Someone was running an insurance fraud scheme, robbing their own stores or having them robbed, collecting the insurance money and letting innocent young black men take the fall. Men who looked similar enough to the actual robbers, men who couldn't afford good lawyers, men the system was already biased against. The real breakthrough came when one of Marcus's hackers, he didn't officially employ hackers, of course, found something interesting in Vincent Cromwell's emails, messages discussing the Madison Avenue situation days before the robbery happened, references to the replacement being ready, and most damning, a payment of $50,000 to someone named Derek Coleman the day after Terrell was arrested. Derek Coleman, it turned out, was Terrell's height, Terrell's build, and when wearing a hood and mask could easily be mistaken for Terrell from a distance. He also had a long criminal record and connections to a crew that specialized in high-end robberies. More importantly, Derek Coleman was the nephew of the Madison Avenue jewelry store owner, the owner who had picked Terrell out of a lineup claiming absolute certainty, the owner who stood to collect $3 million in insurance money for stolen jewelry that was probably never stolen at all, just hidden away until the heat died down. Marcus called a meeting with the district attorney, someone he had donated generously to over the years. He laid out the evidence like a prosecutor himself. Within hours, the FBI was involved. Insurance fraud across state lines was federal territory. Derek Coleman was arrested trying to board a flight to Miami. He broke within an hour, admitting everything. The jewelry store owner confessed soon after. Vincent Cromwell was arrested at his country club, dragged away in handcuffs while his wealthy friends watched in shock. The press conference where all charges against Terrell were dropped was held on a Friday afternoon. Terrell stood between Maya and Marcus, still looking dazed by how fast everything had happened. Reporters shouted questions about the false arrest, about the lawsuit Terrell would surely file against the city. But Terrell just said, "I'm grateful to Mr. Sterling for believing in my innocence, and I'm grateful to my sister for never giving up. I just want to go back to my life, to my work, to taking care of my family." Marcus watched from the side as the siblings embraced. The district attorney apologized publicly. The police commissioner announced a review of procedures. But Marcus knew nothing would really change unless someone forced it to change. That night, Marcus did something he hadn't done in 20 years. He had dinner with someone other than himself. He took Terrell and Maya to Le Bernardin, where they ate food they couldn't pronounce and laughed at the tiny portions that cost more than their monthly groceries. Maya told him about her dreams of becoming a doctor. Terrell talked about his plan to go to nursing school. They were good kids who had been dealt a terrible hand by life but refused to fold. "Why did you help us?" Maya asked over dessert. "You don't know us. You could have just walked away like everyone else." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he told them something he had never told anyone. "When I was 19, just like Terrell, I was accused of stealing from the company where I worked as a janitor. I was innocent, but I was young, black, and poor. 3 strikes in the justice system. But an old white man, the company's founder, believed me. He hired a lawyer for me. He saved my life. That old man became my mentor. He taught me business, introduced me to the right people, gave me my first real opportunity. When he died, he left me enough money to start my first company." He paused, looking at the siblings. "I built my fortune on that second chance. But, somewhere along the way, I forgot what it felt like to be powerless. I forgot what it meant to help someone just because it was right. You two reminded me." A week later, the doorman at Marcus's building handed him an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from Maya. "Dear Mr. Sterling, Terrell started nursing school today. He's using the scholarship you secretly set up. Yes, we figured out it was you. I wanted you to know that your kindness didn't just save my brother. It saved me too. I was losing faith in people, in justice, in the possibility that someone like us could matter to someone like you. You proved me wrong. One day, when I'm a doctor, I'm going to help someone the way you helped us. And I'll tell them about the billionaire who stopped on a rainy street to listen to a desperate girl beg for help, and actually did something about it. Thank you for seeing us when everyone else looked away. Forever grateful, Maya. Marcus read the letter 3 times. Then he did something his assistant would later describe as impossible. He smiled. Not the cold, calculated smile he used in business meetings, but a real, warm, human smile. He picked up his phone and called Harrison. "I want to set up a legal fund," he said, "for people like Terrell, people who can't afford proper representation. And I want to fund investigations into every suspicious arrest where the accused claims innocence but can't afford to prove it." Harrison was silent for a moment. "That could cost millions, Marcus. Tens of millions." Marcus looked out at the city, thinking of all the Terrells and Mayas out there, fighting systems bigger than themselves. "Then it'll be the best money I ever spent," he said. 6 months later, the Sterling Justice Initiative had already freed 17 wrongly convicted people and prevented dozens more from accepting plea deals for crimes they didn't commit. Vincent Cromwell and his network were serving federal prison sentences. The insurance fraud scheme that had destroyed so many lives was completely dismantled. But more importantly, at least to Marcus, was the monthly dinner he now had with Terrell and Maya. They had become the family he never knew he needed. Terrell was excelling in nursing school, working in the same hospital where their grandmother had spent her final days. She had lived just long enough to see him cleared of all charges. Maya was finishing high school with straight A's and had already received early acceptance to 3 Ivy League schools, all offering full scholarships. She chose Columbia, wanting to stay close to her brother. "You know," she said at one of their dinners, "that night I approached you, I had already begged 37 people for help. You were going to be the last one. If you had walked away, I was going to give up." Marcus reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "But I didn't walk away," he said. "And you didn't give up. That's what makes all the difference, finding each other at just the right moment." Terrell raised his glass of water. "To second chances," he said. "To second chances," Marcus agreed, "and to the people brave enough to ask for them." As they clinked glasses in that expensive restaurant, 3 people from different worlds brought together by injustice and hope, Marcus thought about the title of the story that had changed his life. A billionaire hears a black girl beg for help. Save my brother. You won't believe what happens next. And what happened next was something none of them could have predicted. They had saved each other. The Sterling Justice Initiative grew into a national organization. Marcus used his business connections to bring in other wealthy donors. Within 2 years, they had offices in 12 cities. The organization didn't just provide legal defense. It investigated cases, provided support for families, and worked to change the system itself. Marcus testified before Congress about criminal justice reform, using Terrell's case as an example of how easily innocent people could be destroyed by a broken system. Terrell graduated from nursing school at the top of his class. He specialized in pediatric oncology, inspired by the little boy with leukemia whose mother's video had saved him. He often thought about how a child's tears had led to his freedom, and he wanted to spend his life easing the pain of sick children. Maya went to medical school after Columbia, focusing on emergency medicine. She wanted to be the person who helped others in their most desperate moments, the way Marcus had helped her. She kept the letter Marcus had written her for her medical school applications, where he called her the bravest person I've ever met. The 3 of them remained close over the years. When Marcus had a heart attack at 60, it was Terrell who took leave from his job to care for him during recovery. When Maya graduated from medical school, Marcus walked her down the aisle at her wedding since she had no father to do so. And when Marcus finally decided to give away most of his fortune to charity, it was the Washington siblings who helped him decide where the money would do the most good. The night that changed everything, when a desperate girl begged a billionaire for help, became a legend in their family. Maya would tell the story to her children, adding new details each time. Terrell would share it with the young patients who felt hopeless, showing them that miracles could happen when people chose to care about each other. Years later, when Marcus was old and gray, a reporter asked him what his greatest business achievement was. He could have talked about the companies he built, the billions he made, the deals that were studied in business schools. Instead, he said, My greatest achievement was stopping on a rainy street to listen to a young girl named Maya Washington. She taught me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars but in the lives you change. Her brother Terrell taught me that innocence is worth fighting for, even when the whole world assumes guilt. Together, they taught me that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about showing up for each other when it matters most. The reporter seemed surprised. So you're saying your greatest achievement wasn't financial? Marcus laughed, a warm sound that filled the room. Money is just paper and numbers on a screen. But saving an innocent man from prison, watching him become a healer, seeing his sister become a doctor, being part of their family, that's priceless. That's the interest that keeps compounding long after you're gone. The story of that rainy night spread far and wide. It inspired other wealthy individuals to look beyond their boardrooms and stock portfolios. It encouraged young people like Maya to speak up even when the world seemed deaf to their pleas. It reminded everyone that justice might be blind, but compassion could help her see. And in a small apartment in Brooklyn, a framed photo sat on a shelf. Marcus, Terrell, and Maya, at that first dinner at Le Bernardin, three unlikely friends brought together by desperation and hope. Underneath, Maya had written, "The night that started with 'Save my brother' and ended with 'saving us all.'" Marcus Sterling passed away peacefully at the age of 78. His funeral was attended by thousands, but in the front row sat Maya Washington Chen, now a renowned emergency physician, and Terrell Washington, head of pediatric nursing at Mount Sinai Hospital. They held hands as they remembered the man who had been their savior, their mentor, their family. In his will, Marcus left them each a letter. Terrell's read, "You showed me that dignity doesn't come from never falling down, but from how you stand back up. Thank you for letting me stand beside you." Maya's read, "You were the daughter I never had, the conscience I sometimes ignored, and the reminder that one voice calling for help can change the world. Never stop calling out for justice." But perhaps the most important legacy was the one Marcus never knew about. Every year on the anniversary of that rainy night, Maya would stand outside expensive restaurants in Manhattan. She would look for powerful people walking by and watch for young people in distress. She had helped 43 people over the years using her own money and connections. She called it paying forward the Sterling way. Because Maya knew the truth that Marcus had discovered that night, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop, listen, and believe someone who has nowhere else to turn. The title of their story, "A Billionaire Hears a Black Girl Beg for Help. Save My Brother." "You won't believe what happens next," became more than just words. It became a reminder that extraordinary things happen when we choose to see each other's humanity, when we use our power to lift others up, and when we understand that saving one person can create ripples that change the world. And in the end, that's exactly what happened next. The world changed, one act of compassion at a time.